Hello, how are you? This is Faith at Faith and Books. And last night I tested positive for COVID. So I'm not feeling so great. It feels like a sinus headache with bronchitis. That's what I'm feeling. But I thought I would feel worse. But not that I'm feeling great. Anyway, so we'll see if I can make a video while having COVID. I'm going to make it really short. So I watched the video that Kate Howe put out about all the booktubers who talked about the first Victorian novel that made them fall in love with Victorian literature. And it was very interesting. I liked it a lot. It was, a lot of people, not a lot, but like a couple people, or maybe more than a couple. It was Jane Eyre, or Tessa of the Dubervilles, or Sherlock Holmes. And a couple people were different, but it was interesting. And I kept waiting, the whole time I kept waiting to hear certain books that I didn't hear. I don't think I heard anyway. I'm trying to remember. Maybe my brain isn't working right now. I look pretty terrible, don't I? Whoops. Anyway, so I thought I would talk about those three books that I feel, and excuse my very messy dresser, stuff just piled up there. Anyway, there were three books that I read in my childhood, or were read to me, I think, before I read them myself, that really opened up the Victorian world to me and made it so that when I was 12 or 13 or 14, I read Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights and David Copperfield. And these three books really set me up for that. And the one of them, I'm so pleased. It's the exact book that I read as a child. And it was this one, Black Beauty. And I read it over and over again. I know I read it multiple times. I was a big rereader. And I remember all the characters, Squire Trelawney. And yeah, I love this story. I loved stories about horses anyway. I read all the Marguerite Henry books and My Friend Flicka and what else did I read? Oh, The Little Red Pony. Some booktuber mentioned that recently. I had that book in my room and I read it and reread it by John Steinbeck. You wouldn't think it would be a kid's book, would it? But I read it. That's my cat doing something. Huh. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, so I read and reread. I love this book, and it introduces you to the men wearing the top hats and the tails and the squires and the grooms and the handsome cabs and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, so this was the first introduction to Victorian literature that I loved. Then I remember my dad at least twice read this aloud to us during Advent when I was growing up. It wasn't this book. This book I acquired, this particular copy I acquired, I think as an adult a while ago. But A Christmas Carol. Someone might have mentioned A Christmas Carol. But to me, that was really kind of the first love. I think I watched it on TV, Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol and whatever the 1930s movie was of A Christmas Carol. And then my dad read this aloud to us at least twice. And then I read it myself, and I don't even remember when I first read it myself. But yeah, so I was very familiar with this story as well, A Christmas Carol, as a child. And then the last one that I kept waiting for people to mention is this one, Alice in Wonderland. Now, this, I had to go into my daughter's room and get this. Alice in Wonderland and Alice Through the Looking Glass. And I remember reading this over and over again as well. And loving it, loving the sense of humor and the zaniness, the beautiful art. Now, I had a different version, but I think it still had these nice colored plates in it. And I know the black and white drawings in it as well. There. So yeah, so those, to me, before I really got into Victorian literature as Victorian literature, Jane Eyre and David Copperfield, I had these. I had Alice in Wonderland, and Christmas Carol, and Black Beauty. So those would be the Victorian literature. Maybe I didn't classify it as such, but it prepared me for that world. It made it sort of this cozy space that sort of opened me up to wanting to read sort of the bigger works when I got a little bit older. And then just to, I think almost every Victober I show off some of my old books, but I'm not a constant book collector, but I go through periods where I do collect books. Some of them I inherited, some of them I bought. And one of the people, I wish I could, I'm sorry, I don't remember who it was. And one of the people in that How video about their first Victorian book mentions Elizabeth and her German garden. Can you see that? It's glary. I bought this at an estate sale many years ago. I went through a Von Arnim phase where I didn't read all her books, but I read several. And I read one of these. This just squeaks in. I think this was 1901. So it's almost not Victorian. No, 1900. 1900. So I do kind of think of it as more Edwardian. But this book actually, you can see it's inscribed 1913. So that's pretty cool. So like next year, wait a second, is that right? No, 2013 was 100 years old. Wow. So yeah, so Elizabeth in a German garden. Then another book that I never hear people mention, except I was watching Sean Stanfast's interview of Amy of the Amy's Dusty Bookshelf, and she mentioned really loving J.M. Barrie. And The Little Minister is a book I don't often see people talk about, but it's just lovely. And I think I just inherited this one from either my father or look, it's got this nice clear, can you see that? Got like, what do you call this kind of paper? Like tissue paper to protect the frontispiece. See that? So, how old is this? Well, it doesn't say. But I think The Little Minister was written, let's see, it says in 1891. So this is a wonderful story about a Scottish minister who falls in love with a gypsy girl. And I need to reread it. I read it years ago and found it absolutely charming. It's a little bit of a slog. Not a slog, but it was hard because there's a lot of dialect. And it's written in a very old-fashioned style. But it's really kind of magical. And you know what kind of reminded me of it, that same sort of ethereal sense, is when I read In the Roar of the Sea. And I forget who wrote that, but that had that same sort of atmospheric feeling to it that this has as well. Anyway, J.M. Barrie's The Little Minister is a wonderful, wonderful Victorian novel that I don't see mentioned that often. And then I'll show you, this was my dad's book back when he was about 10 or so, At the Back of the North Wind by George MacDonald. I don't think he gets mentioned as much either. I mean, he's not Hardy, he's not Trollope, excuse me, he's not Gaskell or the Brontes. But yeah, he's pretty wonderful too. So this book, so I think he wrote this in the 1870s. This book is falling apart, it really is. But I think I saw the copyright for this. Where is it? Oh yeah, it's 1929. So this, yeah. So my dad would have been 10. Yeah, so that's another one that some people mention, but not that often. And then I just want to show off this edition. It's very water damaged, but it's a little edition of Cranford, and it's got these charming. I don't know, why don't they illustrate children adult novels anymore? We take ourselves so seriously, but you know, they used to do that. And you know, and why not? And this has an interesting dedication in it or something. I cannot read the woman's name. I think it's a woman, maybe not. But it says 1897. Do you see that? 1897. So that's pretty cool. Even though it's very damaged, I sort of treasure that. And I like how compact it is. You know, it's this little book, but it was, you know, at one time it had a beautiful binding, and it has these charming illustrations. So, yeah, so that's a neat thing. All right, that's all I'm going to talk about. Sorry. Oh, no. I'm really getting by on these things. These, the vitamin C drops. They really help with the coughing. And I've been doing throat coat tea. This is good, too, with honey. And I'm trying to drink a lot of water. Tylenol, too. That's helping. All right, okay. I hope you're feeling better than I am. And I hope you're having a wonderful Victober. And I will talk to you later. Happy reading.